think there's something to be said for people love to watch other people. That's like why reality TV is.
Of course. Yeah. Just like the amount of hours I spend watching people talk about sports is probably not natural. It's high.
I believe it's unnatural.
It's probably 60 minutes a day.
Just talk?
I watch people talk about sports.
Oh, like we watch the podcast or whatever it is. Or
yeah.
a sports show or something.
There is no clips of sports, nothing.
Oh, it's just talking. Oh, it's not like Sports Center.
No.
Oh, okay.
Wow. There are two shows I'm absolutely in love with. One's called First Things First on Fox Sports 1.
Yeah.
And one's called The Herd.
Okay. And?
Which might also be on Fox Sports or ESPN. It's not Undisputed, which you've heard of, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's not First Take, which you've heard of, obviously.
Yeah.
I think First Take and Undisputed, they're both very good, and I still subscribe to them, but they're not... You know what it is? It's just they're just not nearly as good.
Yeah.
And so the guy on...
Amir loves Undisputed.
Of course he does. He sends me a lot of clips.
Yeah.
Undisputed used to have the guy from First Take and so on and so forth. Skip Bayless. I used to watch it religiously, First Take anyways, but once I heard about First Things First. Yeah. So First Things First is Chris Carter, who is a Hall of Fame NFL player from Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I know Chris. Yeah, he's got that personality.
Of course. He sort of taught Randy Moss everything.
Yeah.
And then there's also another gentleman, his name is Nick Wright. And
Is he that YouTube celebrity?
I don't think so.
Okay, take it all back.
So anyways, Nick Wright and Chris Carter on First Things First. And the thing about Nick Wright that I love, which is how I learned about First Things First, is he was the first sports commentator. What do you call them? Commentators? Or because they're not commentating anything.
Analysts?
Yeah, maybe analyst.
Yeah.
He was the first person that I ever sort of stumbled upon on YouTube that was gargling on LeBron James' dick.
Just like you do.
Exactly. In fact, I find that him and I compete with how many more inches we could take in our mouths. Yeah, and it's pretty close from day to day. I mean, you gotta take some wins and some losses, right? Some days, I stretch my throat a little bit wider, and sometimes he does Kegel exercises. You know what I mean? It's a good competition from day to day. But you know what I love about Nick Wright versus many other people who do that job is he's all about the numbers.
But doesn't that take? But I disagree with that because sports isn't about the numbers.
Well, I guess when it comes to someone like LeBron James, it has to be about the numbers because the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James discussion, right? Right? You're obviously Michael Jordan, and I'll tell you why Nick Wright is so important because
it's not that I'm obviously; it's that it is obvious.
Of course. You could take his dick out of your mouth while we're having this conversation.
Everyone's got Michael Jordan's dick in their mouth.
Of course, except me and Nick Wright.
Okay.
And the difference is, in fact, and Nick Wright actually uses exact examples. And so does Colin Cowherd, who's the guy on The Herd, the other one, which is how I became a fan of his. Okay. He's also a huge LeBron James fan. They talk about how we sort of make up things about Michael Jordan that never happened because of what we believe about Michael Jordan.
Just the hype train.
Exactly. And because it was so long ago, there's many things that we purposely forget about Michael Jordan. Things that weren't so great about Michael Jordan.
Okay.
And those things apparently never come up. But because we're actively watching LeBron James's career, and night after night we can critique every single play and shot and miss championship, those things are alive and well in the conversation when people from Michael Jordan's side argue against LeBron James.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's a raw data from LeBron James.
Exactly.
Where Michael Jordan is, you're going to pick
exactly.
the stats.
And not only that, but he talks about just how we fantasize about the aura of Michael Jordan and how if we actually nitpicked all the things that they used to directly nitpick LeBron James, people never tell you all of the great things Michael Jordan has and then use those same things to describe LeBron James and what he doesn't have. People don't do that. They say, I'm thinking to myself, I have a 4-hour flight to New York. I'm in complete solidarity, realistically on a flight, with technology these days and noise canceling devices, and I have the latest Bose headsets, I assure you. I can't hear anybody else, so it's 4 hours, and I don't usually sleep much on an airplane.
Yeah.
I'm usually either able rested. I'm a pretty big guy. Seats are pretty small, and just whatever. I like to people watch, and I'm just soaking it all in. I love flights in general.
I also love flying.
Yeah.
Like, flying is the best.
It's unreal, and it reminds you of your boss status completely, like over and over again. I'm flying right now.
Yeah.
I'm airborne.
And I went through Nexus.
Yeah. Oh, well, naturally. You're not to.
Our producer Thomas is not a Nexus fanatic, but
Of course.
that's okay.
Most people who don't have Nexus, i.e., losers, people who don't have something will never be able to argue as to why something is good.
when you don't have a Lambo, you tell yourself you don't want it.
Oh, you lose sleep every night trying to convince yourself why making a Lambo purchase would be not right.
Yeah.
Where everyone else is also up at night, but because they're driving around their Lambo at high speeds with hot chicks next to them with the top down.
Yeah.
No, so on flights, I would say about 2 years ago, I recently maybe 3 years ago, I started to download podcasts, and that's what I do strictly on flights now.
So isn't the flight time the best time for movies? Like, why do you pick the podcast medium? Like, when you're on a flight, you're saying you're secluded and all that stuff.
Yes.
That's an opportunity for, that doesn't mean podcast exclusive.
Of course. However, see, that's the difference. Movies can be shared among many people, right? Let's say I'm at home and I'm interested in watching a movie. I can watch with my girlfriend. I can watch with my roommate. Yeah. I can take 10 friends to the theater and watch a movie.
Yeah.
Podcasts, unless we're all going to sit here and turn on a speaker and just sit silently and listen, no one's ever going to do that. No one meets up and instead of watching the weekly episode of the Game of Thrones, they sit silently and with other friends do nothing but listen to a podcast.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a secluded activity.
Exactly. Absolutely. Okay. It's something that is only ever going to be 1v1, me and the
definitely
headphones.
More than movies.
Of course. Exactly.
And TV shows. For that matter. Like, there's no podcast and chill.
There is no podcast and chill. In fact, music can be enjoyed by more than one person, right? You can have a party, you listen to music, you and your girlfriend listen to a new album.
That's the universal group activity.
And a lot of people listen to music on the flight, right? Yeah. Whereas still podcast, it's just you and the person who's talking on the podcast or multiple people.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, okay, why waste this time that I have where I could be doing something that I have the option to do elsewhere, like watch movies, listen to music.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas this is the only time it's ever going to be 1v1.
Right. So what?
Right. And some people will argue you could 1v1 just 2 hours before you go to bed every night.
Yeah.
But like, my life's too busy. You know this. I know this. Just like your life's too busy, which is all the more reason why I don't listen to podcasts at home.
Yeah, bedtime creeps up fast.
Not just bedtime, but I would much rather fill my time with doing all of those social activities. Right. I'd much prefer watching a movie with friends. Yeah. Game, go out, play sports. Yeah. So this is the time where I'm forced to have 1v1 time. There's no other option. I can't entertain friends. Yeah. I can't be playing games or so on and so forth. So why not do the one thing that I can only do alone during the time where I'm only alone?
So on the podcast route with the flight, do you go educational, entertainment?
Yeah, I used to do entertainment. In fact, I used to listen to a podcast that was about, I guess, fictional things. But now I went towards non-fictional. I listened to a podcast called Freakonomics, which is a lot about economics in your everyday life. I listen to podcasts about things you should know. I listen to a lot of business podcasts. One's called $100 MBA.
Okay.
One's called Entrepreneurs on Fire. It just stimulates the mind, right? Like I always believe that I want to grow my mind, and I'm not one for reading books or taking a class. So, because those would take time out of the things I want to do, which is be social and be active. So, I listen to podcasts, and I'd say I've learned a lot.
I was just going to ask you, when you go through all these different podcasts, like, how have your perspective on things changed, if at all? Like, what have you grown? Because it's been 3 years now?
Of course, I would say I'm not sure if I've personally grown, but my point of view on things has changed.
Yeah.
So it's possible
perspective has changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
100% sometimes, or a full 180 degrees, you might say.
Yeah.
I might have thought I knew a lot about a subject, but really didn't know all of the details.
Right.
And once learning all the details, I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about.
Like, What are some examples of
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I learned a lot about flight attendants. It's funny. Actually, that podcast is called Stuff You Should Know.
I was just going to ask.
They literally pick the most random things and they'll do an hour on that thing.
So just as a caveat first, do you trust that what they're saying is true? Because that's one thing that I think about is, like even you and I talking, we could say a lot of things that aren't true.
Of course.
And if someone's listening to it, they might think it is. If we say it in a convincing fashion,
of course, you're absolutely right.
So do you, as a caveat before you dive into it, do you think everything they say is true? Like, are you sure yourself of that? Do you back check them, or?
Yeah, I guess anything that you hear is simply word of mouth. And there's no ultimate way to fact check unless they obviously give you that option at the end of the episode, or if you go online and they do. But there are also things you can trust, whether it be through reviews or viewership or amount of downloads. Obviously, if a podcast is 10 million downloads versus one that's brand new, you're reluctant to use the brand new one because it could just be Joe Blow in this sense, quote unquote.
Yeah. That's one good thing about sort of the flash mob portion of reviews and kind of feedback is that if it's bullshit,
of course,
probably enough people will pick it up.
Of course. Yeah. And not only it's also instantaneous. Right? I can find out right now how many people think you're bullshit. Yeah. I don't have to listen to you first.
Yeah. For sure. Right? For sure. So coming out of that one about flight attendants.
Yeah.
What
I mean, I guess I learned a lot about the hiring process, about the training, about what they focus on. Yeah. Right? It sounds silly, and it does sound almost a bit laughable.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I don't think there's any knowledge that we can intake that is bad for us.
Okay, yeah, that I agree with.
Yes.
There's no downside to it.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I'm learning about something that may never, ever help me. However, it's possible I might run into a flight attendant and I might treat her differently due to what I now know about her profession, or the rigorous training she had to go to, or the amount of money she had to spend to be where she's at now, and maybe the progression that a flight attendant goes through in her career, right? Just things that are merely an afterthought for the average person. They get on their flight, and the last thing they're thinking about is their flight attendant.
Yeah.
But, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I've noticed that more and more over time, where things I was forced to learn in school, and I mean, you're not being forced to listen to this, but you chose to. Things I was forced to learn, I realized that they actually become valuable down the road. I think you find more things useful that you learn that you might have never thought was useful than not.
Of course.
I mean, I can give a bunch of work examples, but really, like, so many different classes I took, I was like, this is nonsense. I think I wish I would have paid more attention. Or even just life lessons, stuff your parents want to teach you, stuff your friends want to teach you. You just somehow, at the moment, don't believe you're going to use it. But then the opportunity comes up in the future. And like you said, that might come up with flight attendants.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think it's tough when we're in the midst of learning a lesson, as it just feels like that.
Yeah.
We take it as that holy.
Yeah.
We are learning a lesson, right? And when anybody's learning a lesson, they can't quantify how much they'll ever use what they've learned.
Yeah, you can look in the future.
Of course. And you might, and it's very possible you might never actually use it. And it's possible you might use it every day. And I actually it's funny you mentioned one of the examples that you gave, whether it be things you learned in school or things you learned from your parents, but I would say just things I pick up from talking to different walks of life.
Yeah.
Those are the things I find, or I guess parents as well, because obviously we spend most of our childhood listening to them. I find that those are the things I remember the most. It's so strange sometimes that I'll run into someone or a situation and an anecdote or something that I want to give them an advice is something I heard from a stranger walking down the street 15 years ago, and for some reason it's in my brain and I'm ready to use it right this second as if it was my own.
Yeah.
That is what I find is the craziest about learning things. Obviously, if you have a textbook and you're in school and you have a professor, you're learning things for a purpose. But I find that the things that you learn by happenstance or, as you're walking by someone, those are the things that if that opportunity were to come up in the future, those are the things that are embedded in your brain.
Yeah, exactly. I read Elon Musk's book, and he said one thing that I think resonated with me, and it's a good advice for lots of people, is you can do anything if you just read books and talk to people. Like you can learn and understand and do anything if you just do those two things. Like I can learn a million things from you just by talking. And if I read about it too, I think you can get almost sort of university level knowledge and understanding if you do those two things.
If you can, it's funny that you mentioned that because that is what you do in university. There's a textbook for you to read and there's someone for you to talk to. That's your professor.
And there's just no testing when you do it in your casual life, but it doesn't mean you didn't learn it.
Not only does it not mean you didn't learn anything, but some would argue you benefit more without the stress of thinking you're learning something, which is sort of what I'm arguing, is that when you're learning something, the reason why you don't think it's very important, because that's what you're doing. That's what you're focusing on. You're learning something versus just hearing something elsewhere. You're not taking the time to process, okay, I'm learning this. I may need it for the future. And that's most of the time when you'll have those items embedded into your brain and ready to use later.
Yeah, exactly. And you always learn better when you're interested in something.
Of course.
Like you're interested in these podcasts.
Absolutely.
So you're actually digesting that information. If you have to take a certain option, I mean, you're just doing it to get a C.
You could care less.
Yeah. But when you're interested in it, you really pick up on it. That's why I think doing something you enjoy is so valuable for you and your future and what you're going to do every day, because not only are you going to obviously enjoy it, but it's going to be much easier to learn because you're into it and you actually want to go through those difficult times where you don't know what you're doing and you have to figure something out.
Of course.
That kind of coincides with learning other things on the side. If you're interested in it, like the things that I spend my time watching and listening to is stuff I want to see. And so being interested in it lets me learn a lot about it.
Of course.
And retain it, of course.
I think there's a direct correlation there between success at work as well, right?
Yes.
I think you touched on it when you said if there's a hurdle, you're more likely to push through that hurdle because you care. Obviously, pushing through hurdles will quantify in success at work.
Yeah. I mean, you look at any interview of a major CEO or any company that's been successful, like, it was never easy. There's maybe a few one-offs where people became millionaires and it was easy. Any other successful company, it's a lot of hard work. And I think of this resounding theme I hear from them is you have to enjoy this or you're going to give up.
Yes.
Like you're going to give up long time ago if you don't enjoy it, if you don't really, really care about it, if you're not passionate about it.
Of course.
So, and then that really translates into all the extracurricular learning, whether it's by choice or not, whether it's because you have a business or like in your case, all these podcasts, you're not going to get into it. And you're not going to retain it if you're not interested in it.
You're absolutely right. I think that's the biggest obstacle for a lot of people is finding that idea or item or business or, way that they enjoy.
Yeah.
I think once you find it, the rest is sort of, it's also a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right? It makes all of the other sort of... It makes all of the other items that you have to get through to achieve success, they don't feel like little hurdles anymore.
No, I agree. And you want to do it.
Yes.
The one struggle that I sort of see with people in work and stuff is, let's say you don't know what you want to do. There comes a point in time, like if you're not working or have a career, that you're like not going to eat.
Yes. Right?
So if you don't find a passion, but you have pressure to put food on the table because you have a family, how do you balance that? Like,
of course.
Do you make sure you have your passion first before, you get into those heavy commitments, mortgage, family and all that? Or do you just sort of go with the flow as far as those other responsibilities? And if there's a job that comes up that pays well or makes you a good living and security, do you just take that with
I think for every person, it's different. There's no calculation or algorithm that will ever give you the correct answer for that. I think for every person, especially when it comes to the commitments, whether it be the mortgage or the financing the car or, marrying someone. It's possible you've been dating for someone 10 years, but you're not sure when you take that step, right? Am I supposed to have a good job first? Are we supposed to be selling to a place? So on and so forth. I think for every person, it's funny that you mentioned, like, what's the very first thing? Mm-hmm. I think the very first thing is realizing what your path is. What path am I going to take to either getting success in the financial world or in my relationship, and whether you quantify success as just meeting someone who you laugh with or finding someone who you love or getting married and having 5 children. I just think it's different for everyone. And for that reason, there's no perfect path. You can't say that for me, I made sure I found my passion first, had a successful business before I ever met someone, and for that reason, that was what was successful.
Yeah.
That it's not cookie cutter, and that's not how life works, right?
No, like I think you can say that the best case scenario is you find something you love and makes you lots of money.
Of course.
But I don't think everyone gets the opportunity.
You're absolutely right.
Even us in this part of the world, we have a lot of opportunity. You can change jobs whenever you want by law. Like you're not forced to work anywhere. You can sell your home. You cannot. You can move. And a lot of different places in the world, they don't even have the means to do that. Like you grow up in a certain town or you grow up in a certain village, that's your life. So even for us, with all this opportunity, it's still difficult for a lot of people to find something they're passionate about and then find work that matches that.
Of course.
Like if you love to make clay pots, like that's totally cool. Like that's I don't even mean that as a joke. Like if that's your love is pottery. Unfortunately, the macroeconomics of most of the world don't really pay for that.
Of course, but it's funny that you mentioned that because I do feel like if you do put your mind to it, no matter what your passion is, you can be successful in business.
Yeah? You think, because I have heard that before where find what you're passionate about, the money will follow.
Of course.
And you think that's true for almost basically all cases?
I think it will be much harder in some cases, but yes, I would agree it's true.
Yeah.
I would say the person who is passionate about pottery making, no, like all jokes aside,
Yeah, of course.
I think if they truly, that's what they do, that's what they enjoy. It's not only their hobby; they want it to be their means of business. It's just what they strive to do when they wake up every morning, and they may want to teach pottery. They might want to have pottery all over their home, whatever it may be. I do believe that there is a successful business out there for them. And sorry to interrupt you,
no.
but sorry, I meant to say something before I never did. Obviously, that versus someone who's interested in vehicles and may go on to own their own car dealership, which has been known to be very lucrative.
Yeah.
They will each be equally as happy, and one may not be as successful in numbers, but they will be successful.
Right.
I guess that would also bring up another argument: is what's your definition of successful, right?
That's a very good point, because when you talk about equality in a society, giving everybody the same opportunity to be successful, what is successful? Because there's a lot of people who are wealthy that are not happy. So would you say they're successful? Or would you say being content, good family relationships, being comfortable with yourself?
Yeah.
Or is that success?
I think happiness and success can't be used. They can't be parallel.
So then what is success?
So I think obviously happiness is what we know it is. It's joy. It's, smiling, laughing, being around people you love. Happiness, no one has to obviously explain to anyone else. I think success is where you're not struggling. I think you have to just simply take the opposite of it and say to yourself, as long as you're not the opposite, then you're that.
Right, okay.
It doesn't matter how big your iceberg is above the surface, as long as it's above the surface.
Right, okay.
Right?
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say is I don't think we have to measure how much success is success, just what is success.
Okay, fair enough. So if you have a business that, the modern economy doesn't support monetarily as much, but you're passionate about enough that you can make a living, you're as successful as someone else who loves to trade stocks.
Of course. I think so too. I think if it allows you to have the basic needs, then you are successful.
And I think basic needs is a big one. Really, housing, shelter, and food.
Yes.
And clothing. Like if you have those things, you're probably better off than a lot of the world.
Of course.
Right?
And I think if you have a pottery business, you can easily attain those things.
That's true. That's a good point.
So I think that would be my version of success.
So that's your version of the definition of success as I understand it. What is success for you personally?
Of course. It's funny that you mentioned that. And it's funny because I'm currently at a crossroads in my life as not that I'm not sure what's going to be success for me. It's just that I always feel like I'm wanting more. Okay. I'm having a tough time putting a limit as to, okay, when I reach this, I will be successful. I'm having a personal battle with myself that personally I'm not sure how to put that cap.
Yeah, yeah. I think
I feel like no matter how much I keep, whether it be earning, I still feel like I'm not successful, even though I just gave you the definition,
yeah
which is far less.
that. And I was thinking about that, and I've had this conversation with my girlfriend numerous times where we talk about, when are you content? And I think the human nature, I wouldn't say flawed because it's kind of a survival instinct, but a part of it is that you're never fully content with the status quo because you get used to it.
Of course. Now,
Because I think it kind of goes back, and I have no knowledge of this. This is just my own opinion on history of humans and stuff. But, you get to a certain point, like you make a village and you have fire and you have food. All the guys who were content and like didn't make weapons, the other villagers came and killed them. Like, I think we're the genetic result of constant improvement.
of course,
So how can you be happy
it's
after getting used to something?
It's funny that you mentioned that because I would disagree in that what you think everyone has, I don't think everyone has. I think the way you think, Andrew, is what you think everyone else thinks, and it's not true. I think the average person can find content, but it is in a smaller percentage of people, which includes you and I, that we are always striving for greater.
Right.
And our ambition sometimes is what you believe is what somewhat may refer to as a character flaw. It's that ambitious, that nature and drive and hunger that wants us to have more and more. And the reason why you think everyone has that is because you have it. But I don't think everyone has that. I think there are a lot of people, in fact, the majority of people, if you said, this is what I'll give you, they would be content.
Really? You think
Yeah,
that?
I do think that.
I don't know if I agree with that totally, because then why do people constantly buy new houses and new trucks and
Of course.
boats and all that?
I think those people, well, buying things is different, right? They could be showing off. That could be jealousy thing.
Temporary satisfaction.
Of course, I don't think those things they're doing for the purpose of content.
Okay.
I think they would admit to you that when the newer model comes out, they will still buy it.
Yeah.
So it's not. I don't think that they think that buying this will make me happy.
Okay.
But
fair
when
enough.
it comes to success or monetary value, of course, that's what we always come down to. How much money do you make? What do you own? What do you
Yeah.
have? And what can you offer? Like I said, I do believe that there's a small percentage of people who have that shark mentality.
Right.
And if you have it, you can't understand how others don't have it.
So then, are those people less happy? Because
It's funny that you mentioned
if you're
that.
never satisfied.
I do think those people are less happy.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Because happiness is sort of a feeling you have in the moment,
Of course.
right? And if you don't feel good in the moment, or I wouldn't say feel good, if you don't feel satisfied in the moment,
Yes.
because you're constantly striving for more, then you're going to have less fully content,
Of
happy
course.
days than someone who's like, you know what, whatever the situation may be, I own my house, or I pay rent, or I have a 9 to 5,
Yeah.
whatever their criteria is for contentment. Those people feel that contentment every day.
If you're asking me, then yes, I would agree with you. I think, and I doubt they'll ever do this study because it just would reveal too much emotionally. I think if you asked CEOs all over the world if they were happy, if they were content versus your average employee at all of those companies,
Yeah.
I bet you the employee will more likely than not says yes, and the CEO less likely than not says yes.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I once read an article on a website called Ars Technica. I read almost all my tech news, and they have some science news in there too. But they talked about the alpha male in like a colony of, I think it was monkeys or apes or something, and they said the best position to be is to be the alpha male second in line, because you have almost no stress, but you're still near the top of the food chain.
Of course.
So where the alpha male is constantly defending his position,
Yes.
or trying to advance, whether it be by defense or just be more alpha male.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
I just want to make this note before I forget. I know you're an avid Entourage lover, as I am.
Yeah.
And if you recall, there's a line that is mentioned which almost is word for that, but far more relatable to the average person. They say, "Man, what I would give to be king," and don't quote me because I don't remember. "Man, what I would give to be king," and the other gentleman goes, "I never want to be king. Everyone wants to kill the king. I want to be prince, enjoy my life, fucking bitches." Telling girls I'll eventually be king.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know exactly, and I know the characters you're referring to. Because one is the king and one is not the king.
But that is almost word for word what you just said, right?
Yeah.
One of them that's what it is. You're bearing far more responsibility.
Yeah.
As the king or as the CEO or as the alpha, you're aware of the responsibility. You're aware of the magnitude of the things that you have to do to be your own successful.
Yeah, and there's an elite class of those people. Those are the Elon Musks, the Steve Jobs, the Larry Page. Sorry, I'm only listing tech companies.
Of course, but it's no problem. I'm a tech buff myself.
Yeah,
but it's funny, like I said.
Yeah.
How many people do we hear that are super successful? Let's use the example: artists, rock stars that commit suicide.
Yeah.
Right, because they're so unhappy. And yet we watch them on the screen and they're everything we want to be.
Yeah, and we're, let's say, regular Joes for all intents and purposes, especially compared to those people. And you could argue we're more content than they are.
Of course.
Yeah.
So that's it's funny that we all there's some people that just have this nature about them that are always wanting more.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it will ultimately be their downfall, but I would say their chances of being that ultimate quote unquote happiness is far less.
Yeah. So
and it's unavoidable.
You'd say the odds of them being successful in their pursuits are higher,
much greater,
but they're content.
Which is why I brought up earlier. I don't think that happiness and success are parallel.
Right. Okay.
I think
societal success as defined by society.
Of course.
Yeah. So going back to yourself, I mean, you said you're at a crossroads, and I think you have been successful with the work, all the different work you've done in your career as of now. Is that translating to happiness? Is that translating to your idea of success? Or what do you want for both success and happiness in the future?
I guess I would admittedly fall in that I'm always looking for more success.
Yeah.
I have a tough time being content with the status quo.
But is not being content in some way being insecure about
Yes, absolutely,
your image or something along
You're
those lines?
absolutely right. And as hard a pill to swallow that is, and as hard to verbalize it in front of someone, to tell them that I'm insecure or that I'm doing this for a reason and those reasons might be superficial.
Yeah, for other people
of
to
course.
admire.
But you're right. But if I'm being brutally honest, the answer is yes, which I knew, which is why I answered it immediately halfway through your question.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I think because of how success is measured, it's not a personal measure.
It's measured by others.
Of course.
Yeah.
Like, just because if it was personal, we would all just be putting food on the table. But at the same time, there would never be evolution. And there would never be, technology wouldn't be the way it is. And we would never go to the moon because that's what we're doing. We're always trying to better ourselves.
Yeah.
We're always trying to do the next big thing.
How much is bettering ourselves and how much is bettering to be perceived by people differently? Well, because when you talk about societal success, you're talking about how big your house is, how big your house is, all those metrics.
I think those things go hand in hand. In business, you want the bigger contract, which will better your company, obviously. But the reason why you want to ultimately better your company is for that success.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? Like, there's no construction company that gets their very first $100,000 renovation and then stops. It just doesn't exist.
No, you want more.
Was that not enough for you?
They want to land $200,000.
Of course,
$500,000.
Yes, exactly, and it will always go up, always.
Especially in a capitalist scenario where you're rewarded for that.
Yes,
the more success you have, the more opportunity you have for more success.
But the reason why we use the reward is because you're rewarded with money.
Yeah.
Right? If you were rewarded in happiness, we would probably do things differently. Which is funny because we all talk about how we strive for happiness.
Yeah, that's true.
Yet we put happiness aside We ignore happiness and choose the other reward.
So people's lofty goals about finances or any sort of general societal success, are they misguided? Should we be pursuing content with life? Should we be pursuing exploring ourselves and our emotions?
Of course, I would say some of the most irresponsible people that I know with money are happy.
Really?
Yes. What? It's that exact reaction when you say really is why I tell you that you think everyone thinks just like you.
Okay, but
Because you think it's so strange because you're so organized with finances and because finances are so important to you. Yes?
yeah, I would say so.
Yes, and I would say so.
There's a lot of people that if they ever watch this are shouting at the screen.
Of
right now,
course.
yeah.
But because we're being honest, if anything else. If they take nothing from this, they'll take honesty.
Yeah.
But the reason why you think that is because that's you're an
Yeah.
alpha. And that's how alphas think.
Well, I don't know about alpha, but definitely your own perception kind of clouds your judgment there.
Well,
And
of course.
that's why I have this reaction about.
You think your success, everyone measures it the same way because that's what you're personally trying to achieve.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, in some way you can't help that, and I think part of my goal, like in sort of the near and long term future, is to get as many different perceptions as I can. That's why I want to have this conversation because you're stopping me and saying I fully understand why you're reacting that way, and I can't see that. You can't look in on yourself. So that's interesting. You say that you're kind of agreeing with the way I react because you kind of know me that way. So if we let's dial it back to that, people who are less responsible. I don't want to say irresponsible. Like it's up to everyone what they do with their money.
And
irresponsible by our metrics.
Of course,
but what
yeah,
they
I
do.
was gonna say, and who's to say what's responsible and what's
exactly.
not?
I don't want to say responsible. What we would not.
Okay,
do.
fair enough.
So other people are spending money in ways that we wouldn't, and you would say that they are happier.
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I guess not when I want to say yes, but not when you use the term how they spend their money. I think people's own control of their finances doesn't mean that they spend less or spend more.
Okay.
I think let's say, for example, I know that you like to categorize how you spend because that doesn't mean you spend less. That means, I think being more responsible with your finances has nothing to do with how much you spend. I think you can still spend a lot of money and still be very responsible with your money.
Yeah,
if you make more, you can spend more.
Yeah, so I guess you're aware.
Exactly. Well, I think that's I think awareness and responsibility do go hand in hand.
Okay.
You must be aware to be responsible and
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think that's where where I say you think responsibility in finances encompasses more organization. Okay, I see all of my finances in this Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I have a pie chart that tells me where I spend my money. I ensure that my mortgage and my credit card and my debit card are all at the same company so that I can see how much I'm spending per month, how much I'm making per month, and how much I owe per month.
Yeah.
I think, and I would agree, that's my personal definition of responsible finances.
Right.
Because I think just like you have to be aware of where your money's going, where it's coming in, then you can distribute wherever you'd like.
Yeah.
I don't think that the more you distribute means you're more irresponsible.
Right. Oh, no, I agree. It's not.
I think it's the people who don't use online banking. They're getting paper statements like it's fucking 1950.
They get paper statements and they don't check them either.
Yeah. My next point was they're late on making bill payments. How could you fucking be late? Because you have a paper statement that's somewhere in the mail that you haven't checked that's underneath all your dog shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you think those people are happier?
I think those people are happier. And I'll tell you why.
I want to know.
Because you put so much stress on the responsibility of finances, thus putting more things on your shoulder, which I referred to earlier as that alpha or that 1%, let's call it. They bear more responsibility. They'll always have a bigger chip on their shoulder. They walk through their entire lives with that same size chip or that same size responsibility they feel like they have. You're adding to that by ensuring that you have that exact parameter of where everything goes.
Yeah, okay.
And that is another thing that you're making yourself do. By being so nonchalant about it on the other side of the spectrum, they are happier.
They're definitely dealing with less lack of a better word, less thinking.
Yes.
I mean, they come home and that's the end.
Yes.
There's no thought about,
of course,
that their cable bill is, they're paying for a premium cable bill and there's a new deal on.
You would say that's stress.
I would say this, since just my own personality, I'm less stressed knowing where all my money is going.
Of course.
But I think that's innately just part of my personality.
But
so in order to...
it's less stressful when everything is perfect.
Yeah.
But you stress about everything being
exactly.
perfect.
So the best case scenario is not to stress about it to begin
I'm not... No.
I'm saying...
We all agree that we all have our own version of happiness.
True.
I don't think you should be irresponsible with your money.
Right.
That's not what I said. And I also said, and I believe inherently... you'll never remove that stress, Andrew.
I don't know.
It's going to be from this or from something else. I believe that you're that same 1% you're referring to, in my opinion.
I don't think I'm in that 1%, but thank you, Gene.
I think you are, and it's tough to say to someone, but just like we previously agreed, I think your chances of happiness are less.
Because of my innate nature
about stressing about things that other people don't stress about.
Right.
And I'm not saying those are things you shouldn't stress about.
Yeah, it's not that it's because what's important to someone is their own perspective.
Of course.
What's in their own perspective.
Of course. Yeah. But when you believe it should be important to everyone, that's why it's a stress.
Yeah, that's right.
You see what I'm saying?
No, you're right, Gene. You're right, Gene. And you know what? Actually, now that we're talking about this, if I can dial it back before we even started, I was thinking about what this experience would be like. And one thing I was hoping for, which I wasn't really ready for, was getting a reflection of myself off people I talk to.
Of course.
And now that you're saying this to me, I really see that part of me come out in whatever color that is.
Of course.
For better
and
or
that's
worse.
why I'm more than happy to apologize about all the things I say to you.
No, you don't. No, I don't want to apologize because I want this to be raw.
Of course.
But
I don't know if this is the time for it or not, but if anyone would ever look me in the face and ask me, Gene, will you give me one life lesson? One thing that I believe everyone should live by.
Yeah.
Or one rule or one way of living. I think it's all of us, every single person on this earth needs to understand what they're like. I think everyone needs to look in the mirror more and say, not only are these all of my good qualities, because people do that every day, but these are all of my bad qualities. I think the best employee in every company is the one who not only knows their strengths, but fully understands their weaknesses.
Yeah.
I think that's the best player on every sports team. I know that I can't throw this ball to my left as I can on my right. Of course, we should all work on our weaknesses and try to improve them. But if during that play you're throwing the ball, you should throw to the right and not throw to the left.
Yeah.
And our biggest mistakes is not being aware. And that's tough. Being aware is tough.
You have to be honest with yourself.
Which is the toughest thing that anyone would ever say. That there is nothing tougher.
Yeah, I had a chat with a friend once about sports, and I said, your best player is the all-star who knows there's an all-star, right? They're an all-star and they have the confidence. In between there is the guy who's not an all-star but knows he's not an all-star. The worst player, and you know where I'm going with this,
of course,
is the guy who's not an all-star and thinks he's an all-star.
Of course.
Because they're going to play outside their means.
Of course. I don't want to say, I don't mean that you shouldn't take risks in life and you shouldn't do things that make you uncomfortable and you shouldn't try things that no one else has done. But when it comes to especially a team effort or when it comes to admitting to yourself certain facts, you got to look at what you're not good at. Of course. And when you say it's not about not taking risks and not going outside your shell or not doing things that people haven't done, that's still different. If you believe something is doable, that does not make it a weakness just because no one's done it.
You're right.
If you believe it's doable, then you'll work hard to do it.
Yeah.
That's different than in this exact moment, I could do one of two things and one of them is this way and one of them is this way. But I guess I've gone too far. If you're not aware, you're not having that conversation, right? I guess I'm proud to say I believe I'm very aware.
You are?
I would say so. In fact, I'm very honest with them in job interviews, for example, and I tell them straight up what I literally just told you. I tell them I think one of my best qualities is that I'm well aware of what my weaknesses are.
Right. Okay.
And it's not come very easy to me, but a long time ago I realized that it was very important to anything I do, and I worked hard at it.
So how did that journey start? Sorry, I know
I
you're
guess-
reaching for your your water.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm parched. I guess it has to come with failure, right?
Yeah.
No one is ever going to think to do something different if they're succeeding nonstop. The
Yeah.
New England Patriots don't. Well, I guess they're well known for practicing all the time, but I'll just use a more generic, guess is no team who's undefeated every year is always wondering, should I go back to the drawing board? Right?
Yeah.
I guess you have to have a winless season at one point to, at one point, say to yourself, what am I doing that I shouldn't be doing?
Yeah. So
And how can I be doing it differently?
you learn from the losses.
You not only learn more from the losses, you only learn from the losses.
Yeah,
I think you learn nothing from winning.
because you're not going to change anything.
Not only that, but like winning gives you nothing. It gives you 1 second of happiness.
So
Some
how-
people it gives them no happiness.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. It's just that task is done and move on.
Of course. So I think when you lose, that's when you need to take a step back and look at yourself in the third person. You wanted to do this because you wanted people to be that third person
Yeah,
for
exactly.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You told yourself, I want to learn more about myself.
Well, secretly, but now we're saying it live.
Of course, yeah. Vaults are being opened.
I'm doing this for the guest. For the record, I'm looking right at the camera. This is for the guest.
It's all for
But
me.
if I learn something about myself, I guess it's a good thing too.
Yeah, I think a long time ago I was not as successful as I believe I am now, and I was not happy.
May I interlude for a second?
Of course.
When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to you about, I didn't want to write a script, but one question I wanted to ask you, and I'm just going to ask it now because I know that's where you're heading, was my perception of your life and the way things have been going is you always worked hard. Like, let's say dial back 5 years, you always worked really hard, but it was like you're on a boat with a huge engine and no rudder. You just didn't have as much direction. But now I see this just amazing laser sharp focus. Like, everything you do has purpose. You don't do something that's not important to you, or even, and for that matter, not important to other people, because I know you really put other people first a lot of times, including yourself. But I mean putting yourself first, putting what you makes happy first. So 5 years ago, I didn't see that direction, and now I see it. And I was hoping that's where you're going with your previous comment. I interrupted, but how did that change? How did you make this transition?
Of course. You have to...
Is that true in my perspective of that?
Yes, I would say this, and thank you very much for saying those things. I would say that at a certain point in your life, you realize... sorry, not everyone, of course. I realized that I was not happy and not successful.
Okay, yeah, both metrics that...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
So no one thought you were happy and you weren't happy.
Exactly. So that was the tough thing, right? A lot of people have to choose one or the other.
You're right.
And I found myself with neither.
Okay. Yeah.
While still working hard. So I'm pedaling, and there's an island on the right, which is success, and there's an island on the left, which is happiness, and I'm pedaling way harder than ever, or paddling, sorry, and I'm not reaching either destination.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
So I need to, like I said, I need to be more aware. I need to watch myself while I paddle, and I need to discuss with myself, am I paddling at the improper rhythm? Am I paddling improper technique? Am I paddling with the wrong paddle? Right? Am I on the wrong boat?
I think that's a big one.
Right? That's a huge one, right? Like, is the ship that I'm on not even sailing in the right direction?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And the problem is I wasn't sailing in any direction.
So what did you correct, or what were the honest conversations you had with yourself?
Of course, I realized, am I paddling for other people and not me?
Okay.
Right? are these islands not, is this island of success not even going to be successful for me? And is this island of happiness not even, if I reach there, am I even going to be happy?
Yeah, maybe that's your perception of happiness.
Exactly.
But,
No, it wasn't even. It's just maybe someone else's perception of happy.
Right. Exactly.
I saw someone else being happy on this island. So I thought, I'm going to go to that island and I'm going to be happy. Or, sorry, successful. Either one. I think that's a big thing about being aware, is finding what makes you happy and what makes you successful, no matter what those metrics are.
So initially, going back to 3, 4, or 5 years ago, you were looking to tattle or travel to other people's perception of success and happiness.
Yes.
And then,
1,000,000%. And
so
I saw someone happy, and I thought to replicate what they do for me to be happy.
Yeah.
And I had many friends who were successful, and I thought, why not do those things? And in turn, it's only natural I'll be successful.
I think that way of thinking, though, is not wrong. I think it's human nature to not use a million minutes of critical thinking to digest and dissect what makes something work for you, but just look at an example and say, hey, that works. Maybe I'll do that too. It's not like before someone buys a car, they're like, is this the best way to transport myself around the city? Like, should it be horse and buggy? Should I buy a tractor?
Of course.
It's like everyone has a car. I'm going to buy a car.
Of course.
So using those happiness and success metrics, and your initial example is other people. And again, I don't have any research to back that up, but I think that's human nature to put as your first post.
Of course.
First goal post.
However, whether it be human nature or not, and I think it is as well, I would agree, I don't think it's right. It's not like it's a product that you can read reviews on and you say, based on what everyone else says about this product, I will also like it.
Yeah.
Or, see, that's the thing. I use the word like, but when we're talking about liking a product, I want the product to work for the benefit that it's worked for. I want this microphone to have the best sound and clarity.
Yeah.
That's not, it has nothing to do with whether I like the microphone or not. Does it have the best sound and clarity or not?
Yeah.
But in life, it's not so black and white.
No, it's not. Life is very gray.
Exactly. And that's why, as much as you say it's good to have a post or a flag or a starting point as to where happiness is, I would disagree. I would say that post and that flag starts inside.
Really?
Yes. Because we are all so different. And as much as someone will tell you they like something, you might hate it.
Yeah. Even if 99%.
If we're talking about products, it's different.
Yeah.
Does this car drive fast and is luxurious and is comfortable?
Yeah.
If you check off those 3 boxes, whoever gets into it, those boxes are checked, no ifs, ands, or buts.
And even with a car, those personal preferences start to come into play.
Of course. Yeah, you're right. Maybe it was a bad example.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad example. I'm saying even at that point.
Yes, you're right.
It already
even
starts.
The fastest and the most comfortable
Yeah.
and the most luxurious might still not be the preference for someone.
Exactly.
So that only proves more what I say, and that if we can come up with the best product, and even that might not be right for someone, think about your own definition of happiness and success,
Exactly.
which is so skewed. There is no measure, and there is no check mark.
I think and I completely agree with you on that, and I think having that, whatever that self journey is, I think if you can go through that, that's very helpful, and I think it's going to at least set you up for what you don't want.
Of course.
I think what you don't want is a big part of what you want. I mean, logically that makes sense.
Yes.
But just going back to the goalposts and the markers being from what other people's perception is, I think that also comes from trying to fit in.
Yes.
I think from some sort of biological or tribal point of view, people are more successful if they're in a tribe. So if everyone thinks and talks the same, people feel this sort of tribal community. And I'm probably just reaching here because I don't have any sort of sociological, psychological experience. But I think there's a tribal nature in human beings that you almost can't help but to set the first goalpost as the agreement in a group.
And you know what's most funny about that point? Even though I agree with that point, if you name all of those CEOs that you named before, you would argue they did not go with it.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And they are the measure of success.
Or at least societal success.
At least societal success.
For sure, business success.
Which, at least in our
Yeah.
session, is our definitions of success.
Yeah, exactly.
So isn't that funny? How you can tell me about how what we think is success or happiness is trying to fit in, but yet we can agree that the ones that didn't fit in are the ones that ultimately became the measuring stick.
Yeah, you're right. That's interesting. So we still haven't got on your personal level of success and happiness. You said you had a journey?
Yeah.
Or you had at least a thought process.
Of course, I did. And I thought to myself, okay, what do I want to achieve, first of all? So I gave myself 3 goals.
I just want to say, a lot of people do not ask themselves that question. Of course. Because, and sorry to sidebar here, but I think part of it is that if they actually ask themselves that question, they're going to realize how far away they are from that.
It's funny because we can do it 2 ways. A football coach once told me, you'll never hit the bullseye if you don't have a target.
Yeah.
However, for most people, they're so scared to have a target, just like you said, because then they learn how far they are away from the bullseye. If I don't set goals, I'm never not achieving goals. I'm never achieving goals, ever. You'll never do well in life without setting goals.
I agree.
However, they eliminate the disappointment factor of it.
You read my mind. You don't set goals, then you can't fail.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's examples every day about not trying out for the football team because you don't think you're a star, or you think the team might lose, or right. A lot of people, I think, all successful athletes, right? We can measure this. I guess people have different definitions for success, even in athletes. But I guess obviously winning championships, scoring points, whatever it may be for that specific sport. I think the most successful ones are the ones that would tell you they oftentimes do the things that other people don't want to do, and they oftentimes take the final shot and miss it more times than they make it.
Yeah.
But for those reasons, they make it.
They make the final shot.
Exactly.
Sorry, I cut you off. Your 3 goals that you set.
Yeah, so about, I would say 5-6 years ago, I thought to myself, okay, I need to set out 3 goals by the time I hit 30 years old.
Just for anyone watching, which is probably my mother and Thomas, who's the producer.
Yes.
How old are you?
Yeah, I'm 28.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 28. I'm about a third through 28.
Okay.
And yeah, so I probably set it out at about 23, 24, 25, give or take. And I told myself I need to set goals for myself that A, will allow me to be more linear in hitting the goals. And B, I also need to have little celebrations with myself. Once you hit a goal, you need to recognize that you've achieved something that you fought for and that you struggled for and that you've, worked at.
Yeah.
And then that will give you a much higher chance at achieving the next goal.
Yeah, you get that momentum.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I set 3 goals for myself. One was buy a house. Okay. One was make $100,000 in a calendar year. And one was to purchase a car that I wanted.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are big goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially 6 years ago, because you would be 22 if I can subtract.
Of course.
At 22, house, car, and $100,000, that's a lot.
Of course, I would say most, and it wasn't car. It's I want a nice brand new luxury car. I'm a big fan of Mercedes. I haven't put an exact target of which one I want yet.
Yeah.
Those things change all the time with ratings and new vehicles that come out. So that's why that one's not exact. Although I have a rough idea. I want an E350 coupe, AMG, no big deal.
So it's not a Kia Sorento.
No,
anti-Kia.
Yeah. Although for some people, that might be their definition of success.
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, I want a nice, luxurious car I can be proud of, car that I love.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, I need to not only create goals, but I need to create a plan to achieve these goals. And that's when I sort of started to think of what I more wanted to do in life in terms of work.
Right.
Where I wanted to work, who I wanted to work with, who I wanted to learn from. Things like starting to listen to podcasts, starting to, activate my mind more. All of these things are little items that sort of, I believed, would push me closer and closer towards my goals.
Totally.
I believed I would equip myself with the right paddle, on the right side, with the right technique, in the right boat, and that is the way I would ultimately get to the right island.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And I, there's all these cliche sayings that step by step or inch by inch, but honestly, when you spend time on little things like being disciplined about whatever it is in your life, if it's like a certain diet schedule, like meal prepping, exercise, if it's reading a book every month, if it's listening to a informative podcast every second day, those steps, as much as it is cliche, I think they do add up, because all of a sudden you find yourself in a position like you are now, where majority of these goals, I'm assuming, have been accomplished or are on very close to being accomplished, and it starts from that one podcast, that one time you went to work 15 minutes early. Am I correct in that?
You are absolutely right. It's funny that we say cliches are cliche for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? There's a reason why they exist. There's a reason why someone said it, and although it may sound corny, it was said for a reason.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why we all think it's corny, because it's almost like we inherently think it's so obvious that it's true.
Yeah.
Right? Some people would argue saying you can't hit the bull's without hitting the target. It seems so stupid to think otherwise.
Yeah.
Yet people don't do it. They say, well, that's cliche. Well, there's a reason why it's cliche. There's a reason why people use it and repeat it so often.
Totally. So, you've taken on these cliches and just got the right paddle, the right boat. How close are you to your goals, and what's next?
Okay. I bought a house a little over 2 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Very happy. 1,000 square foot townhouse, nothing crazy, but great start at home. I love my place, love the community that I'm in. I guess it's funny because the two last goals sort of coincide.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah, I guess you could say all three of them. I couldn't afford a house or a car without making some money. I can honestly say that I have achieved my $100,000 per year goal.
Yeah.
I achieved it for the first time last year, actually. Which is funny because we spent the last, 30 minutes talking about how I probably won't be content with anything I achieve in my life. And I bought a house, which was this big goal of mine, and now I want a bigger, nicer house. And I've achieved 100,000, which I guess is sort of the staple worldwide. The term six figures is sort of a term that people use to measure success.
Yeah, but now you're letting society tell you something.
But whatever it is, I'm saying the words 100 grand for some reason feel so big.
It's funny because it's just a number system that has a certain amount of zeros. If we were using a base 10 number system, I don't want to go geek squad on everyone. But if we were using a base 8 number system, it wouldn't be 100 grand. It'd be some other number.
Yes.
That would be so amazing.
It just sounds so whole and so perfect.
Yeah.
It's 3 numbers, comma 3 numbers. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, if you were in India, 100 grand would be different, or in China, 100 grand would be different. But I guess I don't know what it is. I just felt like that 6-figure mark. You make 99999. Well, I make 6 figures and you don't. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is about it.
Well, even if the goal is sort of weird in its numerical sense, the important thing is that it is a goal that you achieved.
Of course. So yes, I did achieve it, and now, literally, the day I made the $100,000 mark, which was almost at the very end of the year, there was a photo finish. The day I finished it, it felt like nothing. I maybe enjoyed it for 1 full second. Okay. I achieved something that I didn't know I would achieve.
Yeah.
I put it to myself, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to work so hard. But you try to set big goals for yourself, and, ones that may not be achievable and maybe achievable with a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I achieved it, and I thought, wow, that didn't feel like 100 grand. I want to make more.
Yeah.
But I can brutally say I know that about myself. There are a lot of things that I'm not content with, and I'm not sure I'll ever be content with, to be brutally honest.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure I'll ever get to a point where I'm satisfied.
Fair enough. So, but a small satisfaction would be car shopping for the new.
Of course,
Did
of
you
course.
say? Did you say E350?
Yeah, E350.
You know, I don't know that much about cars, but I do know the CE and of course the AMG specialties of
Yes,
those classes.
yes.
The E350 is an absolute
Yeah.
monster.
Yeah. The E350 is a beast, and obviously there's the E63 AMG. Yeah.
I was gonna.
Yeah.
So you read my mind, and
Yeah.
you know you could go because you can get the C63.
Yeah.
I mean, now we're getting to the car talk, which is the same engine, but the E63. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think it has the turbo and the massively improved interior. Is that correct?
Yes. Now, I'll actually tell you why I would prefer the E50 versus the E63.
E3 over E63.
Yes,
E
exactly.
to E3.
Yes. And
I would love to
I'll
hear
tell
this.
you why. Yes, of course. You think AMG, and you think of all of the great things it offers.
Yes, I
But-
think of all those great things.
Of course. But mostly all of those great things are speed related. Yes?
Well, you got to put acceleration into
Of
the
course.
mix. You also got to put. I mean, if we're talking about public perception, it also has the AMG logo
Of
on
course.
the back.
I'll tell you why I like the E350 more. It's actually quite simple.
Yeah.
The E350 coupe is what I like. And the AMG does not come in a coupe.
Yeah.
And I want the coupe more than I want the power. And the E350 is not slow,
No, it's not. Slow.
right? So I would much prefer that than the sedan AMG.
Perfect.
But we're still looking about 80, 90 grand.
So when you cut in the check,
See, it's funny. It's funny
because you're in. I mean, you're not in. Well, you are in the car business.
I am in the
and
car
you,
business.
You have been before, and I know you know people in the car business.
Of course.
So is this a shoe-in purchase, or like
It's
you
funny
just put
that
the
you
word
mentioned
out?
that because I guess the car purchase as well as the home purchase, those aren't like the salary, right? The salary, I don't get the option whether I want it now or later. It's going to come through an accumulation of the months,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. If you want to buy a house and you have very little money, you can buy a house.
Yeah. The banks will love you for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you want a high interest car loan, making 40 grand a year, you can do that.
Yeah.
So I guess I would say a side goal from the two goals was I wanted to be financially comfortable while making those purchases.
Right. Okay. So you want to make a smart car purchase.
And home purchase. The home's already done. Right? I
course.
made a smart home purchase.
You did, definitely.
So although those goals are in line, for example,
Yeah.
I'm just like you in terms of I think financial responsibility is important, or
Right.
whether it be financial organization we're going to change it to.
Yeah.
That is more important to me than buying the car.
Okay. Perfect.
I'm not going to be 29 and 11 months thinking, I have money, why don't I just buy the Benz? I'm not going to buy it. If I'm not
Exactly.
financially responsible.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, you can definitely get raked over the coals if you have a high interest loan on a vehicle. I mean, we've exchanged stories about this before. There's certain car sellers, we won't say, that
course.
take advantage of people in that
course.
situation. Obviously, you wouldn't let that happen to yourself.
Of course.
But no, and maybe that's even better part of the goal is like because when you accomplish that goal, which you have done with the house, you're going to actually feel proud because you did it the right way. And so when you get to that point, I mean, you still have a year and 2/3 of a year, if I'm measuring that right, to do that. So
I think that's part of the reason why I mentioned before you need to look at yourself before you do everything else. Whereas you might not have agreed, you said I think you put the measure, then you don't want to spend so much time looking at yourself. I think the reason why that's so important because once I realized that financial responsibility was important to me, only then could I set goals that were in line with being financially responsible.
Yeah. I mean, only when you know you can't stick handle do you work on your stick handling. I'm using hockey as an example because I'm an atrocious hockey player. And I can't even say...
That makes two of us.
I can't even say hockey player. I put on skates and go skate around. I'm wearing gloves and a helmet.
That makes you twice the hockey player I am. Yeah, that makes you Wayne Gretzky to me. Yeah, wow, this guy can skate. Look at him go. I think a lot of people resent other people for doing really great things. I'm the exact opposite. I'm so fascinated by things I can't do.
Yeah.
Like people are skating backwards.
Tell me
like,
about it.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
He's showing off.
I know.
Look at this guy stopping on skates.
Yeah.
It's insurmountable to me.
I know.
I can't achieve these things.
I try.
I don't care how much of my mind to it. I put my foot down with no skate on.
I try and play hockey, and when I watch people skate like real hockey players, I'm thinking, wow, that's impressive.
I see people do things on ice I can't do on regular ground.
Yeah.
And that's when I have the ultimate respect.
Yeah.
This guy could do something skating on knives.
Yeah. I said earlier, my producer, that was incorrect. Thomas is not my producer. He's the producer of the show. But he is a fantastic hockey player. When I get to watch him play, that's really special, especially in net. I think if we're talking about goals, Gene, one of my goals, we work at the same company now, and there's a Wednesday lunch ice time. One of my goals is to try to score a goal on Thomas. Many attempts, not one success.
It's not happening.
And you know what? The rumors are true. I knew Thomas was a great goalie before I went there. Switched to this new company, and the rumors are true. Everyone that I work with that plays hockey says the same thing. So I think if we're there for maybe 10 years, I might get one goal. We'll see.
The celly will be phenomenal.
Oh yeah. You know what? We had a 2-on-0 a couple weeks ago. So you think that's a shoe-in, right?
It's an absolute slam dunk. Using another sports reference.
Yeah, like a 2-on-0 in NHL is like if you don't score, you're going to the minors.
Of course.
And but he passes it to me, and I don't have the wherewithal to look up and get the puck at the same time.
Of course.
So I go down to catch the puck, and by the time I look up, it's just nothing but body in front of me. The one-timer was there as a reference to the stick,
yes,
but not there in reference to the net.
Yeah.
The
opportunity was there, but not there.
I think I hit Thomas right in the chest protector. Wow. Like he didn't even need his pass or his pass. Yeah. So that's, if we're talking about goals, that's a lofty goal. We'll see if that's possible.
But you know what? It doesn't have to be a lofty goal.
Yeah, I think having small goals, I mean, those 3 goals you put out are big. But I think small goals is what builds momentum.
You're absolutely right.
For big goals.
You're
if it's
absolutely
like,
right.
I'm going to go to the gym this week 3 times. And then when you do that, you're like, you know what? I can do that next week. Or I have this 500 book page I want to read about the history of the Civil War. I'm not sure. You read 50 pages. You're like, well, I can do this next week. You read 100. I mean, I'm really just spelling out in layman's terms, but those little small goals, I think, give you the confidence for the big ones.
I think the small goals are very important. In fact, others would argue that the big goals are the easy ones to at least lay out. Well, everyone's got huge goals. Everyone wants to be the manager of their company. Everyone wants to have a nicer car. But when you put smaller goals in front of you, those are very achievable, and you must achieve them to get to the bigger goals.
Yeah.
I think those are almost even scarier because you'll know immediately if things are on track or if not.
Yeah, exactly.
If I'm at 20 grand 10 months into the year, I'm not making 100.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you're immediately going to get a response on success and failure. You're going to immediately feel that uncomfortable feeling of, oh my goodness, I might not make it.
Of course.
And I have listened to different people speak, and one podcast I listen to a lot is Joe Rogan. And one thing he mentions a lot is you got to be uncomfortable, because really you're never going to really push yourself or continue to do things that you want to accomplish if you're not uncomfortable. Right?
I think one of the ways to make yourself uncomfortable is to not only set a goal, but to set a time limit.
And fail too.
Yeah, but setting the time limit it makes it real. Anyone can say, "Oh, I've been trying to become a bodybuilder for the last 10 years," and then 10 years later, I've been trying to become a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Well, you have a goal, that's great.
Yeah.
But if you don't put, it's still the same thing. It's if you don't put a date, then you can't fail.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
And one of the things personally, I have to admit, and I've read about it, is one of the best things you can do for yourself is write your goals down. And then with that goal, you write a timeline. Even if it's not completely black and white, like within 2 years, or I want to achieve this goal before I get married, where it's like not an absolute cutoff.
Of course.
once you write that down, you're so accountable for it.
Of course.
And I personally have avoided that because I'm afraid that I won't make it.
Of course.
I do have my own mental goals, and I think a lot of the goals that I don't have tons and tons of goals, but some of the goals I keep to myself for the same reason that you described earlier, where you're afraid to fail. Like if I tell someone that I'm trying to accomplish something,
Then they're going to ask you, have you accomplished that yet?
Yeah.
And I would adjust that. I think that you need to put times, hard times, not loose times. Don't give yourself a goal before I get married, because then guess what? You're engaged to a beautiful girl and you have a goal that you haven't achieved yet and you're scared to get married.
You're right. Maybe you've pushed that date back.
Of course, maybe in these current terms that might sound so crazy, but to someone else that might not.
Exactly.
I think you need to put a number.
It just
hard number.
It makes you accountable, and my girlfriend is one of the best examples of that. She writes down certain things, whether it's goals or things she wants or things she's looking for in a job or a relationship, and then those things come to fruition. And I don't know if writing it down is the reason for it, or if writing that down puts the seed in your head with a time limit that so subconsciously you have those actions towards it. But she does it all the time, and it's promoted nothing but success. Success as far as accomplishing.
Of course. I think the more people you ask, they couldn't agree more. You put it down, there's direct correlation of whether you're.
Did you write your 3 goals down?
I did not, but I did tell a lot of people.
Okay.
I guess for a short amount of time, I was scared to tell people. But once I became comfortable with telling people, I told as many people as possible.
And then it keeps you accountable.
Oh, and it's scary as fuck. Right? It's frightening.
Especially when they're lofty and big goals.
Of course.
Yeah.
And because my goals, I believe, may be directly correlated with success. Right? If there's a goal that's correlated with going to the gym, like if you don't go to the gym, like you might still be. I feel like this conversation has gone towards success and happiness are the 2 ultimate pieces that we all want.
For sure.
Right? Losing weight or going to the gym might not be either of those things. But my goals were directly correlated with one or both of those things.
Yeah.
And that makes it more scary, because then someone can tell me you're not successful.
Yeah, I agree.
If you don't go to the gym, that's more of like a personal thing. No one's going to be like, you didn't go to the gym. You might still be active, you might still be fit, whatever it may be, but you had a goal that you didn't get.
Yeah.
But no one's going to say, they might say you didn't achieve that goal, but they won't poke at something that you ultimately want in life, which is success or happiness.
Yeah. So, so far, the last 6 years, you look like you're on your way, and I'm extremely confident you're going to accomplish your last goal. I just want to say, as my own perspective of you, I think I'm really proud of how you were able to accomplish all that. I didn't know you had those self-reflections, but explaining it now, that's really hard to do. And I'm proud of you, Gene, for doing that. And I'm really, really proud of the success you had. Sorry. I can't really put into words how different you are or have changed over the last few years. You have just an unbelievable focus, and you've still carried that amazing personality that everyone wants to be around. It's fantastic. You have the same amazing spirit that people want to be around, and now you're taking care of yourself and you're focused. It's fantastic.
I appreciate it. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because for all the same reasons that people don't want to be told about all of the bad things that are going on in their lives, or the self-reflection, all the negative things, I think a lot of times we don't see all of the positive things.
Yeah.
Right? If you're trying to lose weight and you look in the mirror every day, you look the same every day.
Yeah.
You could have lost 10 pounds, but because you see yourself 365, you don't look any different.
True.
And you might have learned something at work, and that might not be quantifiable because it's knowledge. No one can tell you you're smarter. Or you might make more money, but no one can tell you, oh, I see that you made more money lately. You know what I mean? I think a lot of those things, I'm definitely thankful for the ability to have people around me, just like you, a close friend or family member who will take the time and say, I see improvement.
Yeah, I'm here to tell you that I see it, and I know a lot of other people see it, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to sit down and talk with you was you were in a place. I mean, you were never lazy, but you were in a place where all your hard work just seemed to be paddling in the wrong direction, if we're using the same metaphors before. And now you're just absolutely full steam ahead, and everybody better watch out kind of attitude, which is fantastic. And at the same time, you're taking care of the people around you. It's amazing. It's something I aspire to, especially. I mean, first of all, how driven you are. I think I'm somewhat driven, but you're definitely more driven, and you're also keeping all the people close to you in mind. It's fantastic.
I appreciate it. It means a lot to me.
Well, thanks for coming, Gene.
Thanks for having me, man.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.